Well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy summer to you. We're in the dog days for sure, and it's plenty hot. People are joining in right now, and I am remote on location today and excited to join you for another Association Essentials series, helping you manage your association. Right? That's what we're doing here. And only one screen today, so you know how exciting that always can be. And just a reminder about our upcoming last four of the year, last third of the year, next month, reserve studies, associations, elections, Insurance 101, and best communication practices. Thank you to everyone who's a part of the HOA Living family, one of our owned management companies, or one of our core solutions partner companies. Stay in touch with us through social media. Our clients get the community scoop through our website, hoaliving.com. And this and all of our training sessions are available on the YouTube. There's QR codes to help you. You can also access the schedule, RSVP, and find previously recorded sessions at the hoaliving.com website under boards. Just a reminder, and there's QR code. Each month we are honoring a board member of the month and can win a gift card and a trophy. And community manager of the month. We've had several, like dozens of nominations for both board members and community managers of the month. And we look forward to sharing that information with you. All right, today, understanding board member roles and responsibilities. We're going to start off, I know this is shocking. I feel like a broken record, right? Every month, we talk about the hierarchy of authority. It has relevance in every single topic that we ever talk about. In the triangle version, the higher position equals greater authority. So rules and regulations in our communities, the clubhouse hours and rules, the rules for signs in yards, those are the least dominant on the hierarchy of authority. The most important thing that has a greater authority are laws and statutes. Federal laws, then state laws, then our governing documents, the plats, the CC&Rs, articles, and the bylaws. Now, on board authority, there really isn't anything in regards to board authority on a federal level. But on state level, you can find several things specifically in state-specific community association statutes. So some states have a condominium act, and then they have an act for everything else. In Utah, it's called a Community Association Act. Other states call it a Planned Community Act. So things different in statutes. Minnesota has a combined statute, right, where common area associations, common community associations, and condominiums all share an act. And we just want to look at some of them. We'll look at Utah and some of the language that comes from that Condominium Ownership Act. They're across the bottom of the screen there, Community Association Act, the Nonprofit Act. Every state has some version of a Nonprofit Corporation Act where a lot of this comes from, because boards are boards of nonprofits, and there's state law that's going to set the same for United Way, the Boy or Girl Scouts, your local charity. These nonprofit boards are going to have the same state requirements as a community association board would, or a condo association board would, but there might be even more specifics in the specific act, Condo or Community Association Act. So these are important to understand because remember, higher up on the authority, therefore they trump whatever your governing documents for your specific community say. So one, you in Utah, you must have a board if you're a community association, acts on behalf of the association. There's administrative control unless otherwise provided in a declaration. Elect board members, elect officers unless the declaration provides election of officers by lot owners. So the state laws in Utah say that officers are elected by the homeowners, but 99.9% of the governing documents, the declaration, says that no, all the owners vote for the board, and then the board gets together and from amongst themselves, they elect the officers. Board actions may not benefit board members or their families. Conflicts of interest must be disclosed. So it may not benefit unless it's disclosed. Arkansas, beautiful Arkansas State House there, shall be governed by the bylaws, must have a formed administration and specify the powers for removal and compensation of each officer, establish a method of calling or summoning the owners to assemble. You must assign minutes to be kept, and you must institute a manner of collecting the dues. Arkansas does not have a lot of specific statutes for our industry, but there is the Horizontal Property Act, and which doesn't cover condos at all. There's no Condo Act, and then the Nonprofit Corporate Act. Beautiful Minnesota. I don't think there's any snow on the ground right now. It's governed by a board of directors, can act on behalf of the association except where restricted, must exercise care as fiduciaries or directors, must be fulfilled and enforced uniformly and fairly. Board elects the officers who take office upon election. Board meetings must be open to unit owners. So, right? In Minnesota, if the documents say nothing about it, the state statute is saying that it's the board who elects officers. That's different than Utah, which says unless the governing documents say otherwise, the homeowners elect the officers. Minnesota's got the Common Interest Ownership Act. It's a combined act for all the product, and then the Nonprofit Corporate Act. Idaho, boards and entities have the duty of governing the association, and it's in the statute they must vote to impose any fines pursuant to the rules and regulations of the association, and boards must deliver written notice of meetings for such vote at least 30 days prior to the meeting. So handling fines for compliance issues in Idaho got a little sticky as last year or year before. Idaho Nonprofit Corporate Act, Condominium Property Act, and there's an HOA Act that has started. Arizona, board cannot act on behalf of the association to amend the declaration, terminate condominiums, etc. May not benefit. Conflicts of interest must be disclosed. Must summarize and provide owners proposed budgets within 30 days of adoption. Owners can remove board members with or without cause with majority votes. Must have an annual audit, review, or compilation. And the Condominium Act, Planned Community Act, Nonprofit Corporate Act. So why do I show you these different examples? Is a lot of this is very similar. There are some nuanced things that you need to catch, but you will find most of these somewhere, either in other parts of the state statutes for each state or in the governing documents. So a lot of attorneys, those who practice in this industry, will summarize laws that are applicable for our industry. So you can find those resources on websites. publications, things like that, of the applicable sections. But even then, there could be a rogue section in a whole total different part of the state code that would affect your roles and responsibilities as board members. In our governing documents, remember that a lot of state laws talk about if it doesn't, unless otherwise mentioned in the declaration or in the governing documents, there are those authorities in the declaration, which is the CC&Rs itself. But most of the time, that paragraph or even just a sentence in the declaration says board's roles, responsibilities, authority will be found in the bylaws. So we have to look at the bylaws too. And here's just a couple examples. This is from two different communities. Bylaws, I think the upper one's a Utah master plan, almost 2,000 home community. And same, the bottom one is from Minnesota, from a Minnesota set of bylaws. And there'll be a whole section on the board of directors, but in the upper one, it simply says this powers section, the project and the business and affairs association shall be governed and managed by the board. The board may exercise business judgment and all of the powers of the association, whether derived from the declaration, these bylaws, the articles, or the acts, except such powers that the declaration, these bylaws, the articles, and the acts vest solely in the owners. So very simple, cut and dry. If it's mentioned anywhere that this is an association function, the board's in charge of it. I wish this would say the board shall exercise business judgment. It says may for some reason. That's just the drafter's preference. But anything that has to be done, unless the documents say this can only be done by a vote of all the owners. A lot of times you can't do a special assessment over X dollars without a vote of the owners, or you can't raise the assessments, the monthly operating assessments greater than 20% without a vote of the owners. Whatever it is, the board can't usurp the power of all the owners. Where homeowners get confused a lot of times, right, is they want to opine and vote on everything. Well, in Utah, there's no state statute requiring budgets to be voted on by the owners. That's a power of the boards from the state statutes, and most of the governing documents support that. But in Arizona, right, the budgets have to be out and approved by all the owners at least 30 days before going into effect. So no, I like simplicity, but sometimes it's not simple. If you look at this Minnesota section from 6.4, 6.4 is actually 2 full pages, but it's summarized in this header under powers. The master board shall have all the powers necessary for the administration of the affairs of the master association. The master board shall exercise for the master association all powers and authority vested in or delegated to the master association, and not expressly prohibited or reserved to the community associations. So there's 7 or 8 sub-associations in this master, and they have their own documents. The master can't do what they're supposed to do if it's mentioned in those documents, by law or by the master governing documents. Unless otherwise authorized in writing by the master or otherwise expressly provided in the master governing documents, all powers of the association shall be delegated to and vested in the master association pursuant to, right? It's bringing up the act, the combined act, subject only to limitations imposed by the master governing documents. The powers of the master board shall include the power to, and then there's 2 pages bullet points that are mentioning all the specific powers of the master board in the master association. So I hope that's helpful. Read the documents. know the state laws, but it's more important to know your specific community documents. All right. So what are the common roles of the board? Remember how that Utah power section on the previous slide talks about anything that the association's responsible for, the board's responsible for. And so they're responsible for common elements, associations. Association acts through its elected board and officers. Most associations allow for board members to elect the officer positions assignments. We talked about that. Boards make policies for the association, carry out administrative functions, and boards are obligated to act with utmost good faith towards the association, cannot act to their own advantage. And they need to use experts in those fields when they can. That is the business judgment rule, which we were talking about. There it is. Act in the best interest of the association as a whole. Be responsive to the needs and desires of the owners. Right now, I might be an owner and I might be a really loud owner. Matter of fact, I am a really loud owner in my homeowner association. And I might need my weeds pulled every time one pops out of the mulch. Immediately. I need it immediately removed, hypothetically. And that's my need. Well, the board has to be responsive to the needs of the owners, but there's budgetary concerns and constraints. And in my association, the landscapers hand till weeds once every 2 weeks during the peak season. So that means they take their hoe or their tool and they just kind of push it back and forth until that weed pops up, and then they pick that weed. They're not getting the root of the weed. It's not removing it completely. And the next day, they're gone. They're all gone for a good 6 hours, and then bam, Mother Nature happens and there's new weeds popped up through the mulch. Well, I hate that. I don't like that, and that's my need to have it automatically taken care of immediately, but there's budgetary concerns. And that's you as a board member listening to the whole community. And you can say, hey, Mr. Johnson, we're glad to provide that service. Your $135 a month assessment would need to be $195 a month if we provided that kind of service. When you match the numbers to the needs, right? We tell our clients and potential clients all the time, there's nothing we can't do and provide you, but you have to know that there's a budgetary consequence. Be familiar with the governing documents, state statutes, and federal laws. That's what we trained you. That's why we started off today's training with that activity. Boards establish and enforce the governing documents fairly and uniformly. Fairly and uniformly. That's a tough situation, right? Because if I'm a board member and right behind me lives some very loud or obnoxious or rule-breaking residents, and I'm on the management all the time just about them, and they're valid, right? They're breaking these rules, too many vehicles, trash, dead landscape, whatever. But I'm not going out and giving my eye and attention to the rest of the 200 homes in my neighborhood. Then am I fairly and uniformly having those rules enforced? I don't think so. I think when you're a homeowner, you can do that. You can submit for what you see around you. But I think as a board member, you have a higher duty to make sure that what you're asking be done to your neighbors is done to the whole community. And heaven forbid, make sure that we ourselves are also in line with that rule. Set the policies, the standards, the procedures, the programs, and budgets for the association. Implement decisions or delegate implementation to professional management. We like that one, committees, or an independent contractor, while not micromanaging. So if you are, a typical management contract will say once every 2 months or once a month, we'll drive through and look for compliance violations. And you say, you know what? I'm going to need you to pick me up in your car and drive me around when you come do those inspections every time. Now, if you want that, the management company can put that in their contract. That might be a thing. That's a form of micromanaging. Is there another way to get that information? Look through your board portal, find which violations are going out. That's a little bit less micromanaging. While the board can delegate authority, it can never delegate responsibility. So while you can have management do almost all your business affairs, the ultimate responsibility is the board's, not the management company's or any other third party. Board's responsibilities here in a little quick itemized, little iconed way. You have financial, risk management, insurance, HR, if you have employees or even just volunteers, enforcement, maintenance, and building community. The one that gets forgot a lot because we're so mired in enforcement and the business fiduciary part. The board must use sound business judgment, act in good faith, with due care, without any direct conflicts of interest, with loyalty to the association, evidenced by acting in its best interest. So what does this mean? 24 years ago, I was a newbie in the industry. It was just me and a couple of others at the firm. And I had a condo association. It was a conversion from old apartments. And they had made the units very nice and put a security gate up in the parking lots. It looked very nice. But they didn't replace the 40-year-old roof when they did the conversion. So these brand new units, and they were very small. They were only like 700 to 800 square feet each. One bedroom. Had a lot of water leaks through the roof. And the board said, hey, go get us some bids. And we got some bids, and the board reviewed them, and they were expensive. Because basically that whole old roof had to be taken down to the studs and then rebuilt because of its age. And they said, let us do a little bit more work. Thanks for these 4. I think we've gotten them 4 bids. And then we get back to the next board meeting, and so are they acting in good faith, right? They didn't want the association members to have to pay, I think, $2,000 per unit for this roof assessment. So they were looking for a better deal. So they're acting in good faith, and they got multiple bids. That's due care. We come back, and there's only one new bid. And the board member said, hey, my husband used to do roofing, and he's willing to get the license and hire friends from that roofing company and give us a roof for just so much cheaper. So disclosed the conflict. So there's no direct conflict of interest because it's been disclosed. Some states don't allow any dealing like that, but most states do if it's disclosed. And this wasn't something that was just, the roof was going on for everybody. It wasn't just going to be to the one unit's best interest. But financially, obviously, was going to be, and I had some concerns with that. And as a professional, I felt like I needed to voice my concerns to the community, to the board. So we got down to the vote, and we had the best of the four we had provided earlier, and the board member's husband who's going to do the roofing job. And we vote, and the board member married to the gentleman abstained from voting initially. And then the vote was 2 for company A, 2 for company B, her husband's company. 2-2, we couldn't break the tie. That's why there's 5 board members in the first place, but the 5th board member was abstaining. After about 20, 30 minutes of going round and round, she decided that she said, I'm going to go ahead and vote. So who did she vote for? No shock. She voted for her husband. So it was 3-2. Now, there's no statute in the state of Utah that said she couldn't do that. But I, highly recommended that the board vote elsewhere. And but they went ahead and they saved a lot of money. The other part of what they had proposed was that we live here. He'll be here to do any warranty work for the next 5 years. We'll be here for 5 years. And as soon as they had that cash, they went and bought a house and didn't live there. And warranty work was a problem because it wasn't an ongoing company. So acting in the best judgment, good faith, due care, getting multiple bids, disclosing, but then acting the association's best interest. The board has rights too, not just responsibilities, but has rights. And these need communicated through e-blasts, through websites, through community meetings. But there's an expectation that owners and residents pay their dues timely. And residents should know and comply with the rules and regulations of the community. And owners should be respectful and honest towards the board. Meetings need to be positive, not adversarial, not angry. And there needs to be, let me just move my camera here. Support, constructive input from the owners during the owners' feedback time period. Just because I volunteer to be on the board doesn't mean you get to come to my house with every single issue you have, and take advantage of educational opportunities. Hopefully, if you're not managed by us, you're involved with some opportunity to train the homeowners and educate the homeowners. A lot about the misperceptions and problems in associations is just due to a lack of education. So we talked about the board, but wait, there's another section. The next section after board is officers. And typically it lists a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. 90% of the time across the country, the members of the board elect those officers. Some states it might be different. And I've managed a couple communities that have a board of directors different than the officers. And I'm always like, well, what if the officers vote differently than the board? Which decision are we to follow? Thankfully, we didn't have that problem. But I think it's always best if the officers are members of the board. And typically, like I said, president, if you have 5 people, you have president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and your board member at large. The roles that the governing documents call for is the president leads the board and handles procedural duties to keep association responsibilities in order. Calls for board actions and announces results. Does not and cannot make authoritative decisions or hold veto power. That's not something that association presidents are granted that power to do. They preside over meetings, oversee enforcement and procedures, and they're the ones who can sign management contracts and big contracts, those kind of things. So what does management do in regards to the role of the president? While the president's conducting, the management provides guidance and answers for board discussions. We perform the actual compliance tours and communicate findings, applicable fines, and then we're vested through the state as a managing agent to sign and do deals on your behalf. Vice president steps in when the president is not available, stays involved, informed, has access to things that need accessed. Secretary's role is to preserve history, maintain documentation, all this to help the association from liability. I often say when we're at an annual officer election meeting, I think the secretary is the most important officer position because it's their job to maintain, keep the history of the association through planning, recording, and communicating. Professional management guides and helps stay the course and what are the responsibilities, keeps all the association records complete in a database, and follows up and tracks progress of deliverables. Secretary, meeting minutes, meeting notifications, meeting agendas, documentation, member directories, and correspondence. The treasurer is the financial voice of the board and chief liaison financial specialist. And just a month ago, you can go watch it through the website or our YouTube channel. We talked about the financial part of associations. We went into great detail on the treasurer and how management works. But once again, the treasurer is the lead on budgets and reserve studies and the financial reports, and is the liaison and reports to the rest of the board. But most of that is coming from professional management, right? See, overseeing investments. There's actually some interest out there these days, which is nice. Really, right? You have your delinquency policy, and your management company is just going to follow that. You shouldn't have to go, why is this not moving through the process? You should just see that it's moving through the process. Prepare and present budgets, income tax returns, making sure that the management company or your CPA are filing income tax returns. Work with the reserve companies, CPAs, insurance agents. Another role of the board is committees. And board members, one, bless you for your efforts and the things you're doing, but we understand there's not dozens and dozens of people who want your job. And that comes for a lot of reasons, right? One, people aren't respectful of your personal time and your home and things like that. And people are mean. But there are people who just don't serve because of time limitations or interest, or they're just serving in other capacities. But committees are a great way to have success in your community. And some of our better run communities have successful committees. Committees. So if I flip-flop those words, I apologize. You might find people that just are willing to do a short-term project, like maybe we need to refresh the playground equipment. Our playground equipment's 20 years old. It's time for new equipment. Well, that's a great thing for an ad hoc committee created for a particular short-term task. There are people in your community, I hope there are people that are willing to do that work and then report back to the board. There's a board liaison, you create a charter, right? We've gone through all those things. You can find those on our trainings. And then, but there's also mandatory committees that you have to have. Most common, the Architectural Review Committee or Architectural Control Committee, ACC, ARC, that has to approve changes within the community. To have committee success, you got to guide. You got to give them a direction. So you develop guidelines and charters for the structure, function. What is their responsibility? You give that ad hoc playground equipment committee, say, we have a budget of $35,000, which isn't going to get you a very big playground these days. And we want you to go meet with these vendors, look at ideas, survey the community, see what kind of things people want. And then you're going to recommend us. As a board, it's so important that you act on their recommendation. Now, if you don't give them a budgetary guideline and they come back with a $100,000 playground, which is very easy to spend these days, and then there's a lot of hurt feelings because you're like, oh, we can't do that. Well, that's your own fault because you didn't set it up in your guidelines to them. So give them good guidelines and then act. Don't micromanage the committee. Make sure that you act on their recommendation. And then at every opportunity possible, praise, publicly thank, e-blasts, newsletters, annual meeting, thank your volunteers for the time that they've served. In some of our big master plan communities, they have a volunteer barbecue or an event. I don't know. We don't have any, but I've heard of large scale communities have a black tie event for their volunteers each year because they provide millions of dollars of service to the association, to the board. And so do you, board members. But I think you understand, right? Maybe you came through being on a committee and you got to get your love from us, your management company, because it's not always going to come from your community. So here's our great looking community association management campsters down in St. George a couple years ago, and on Founders Day, some of our team there. And we're your partners, right? What are we doing with you in this topic of roles and responsibilities of board members? Well, we provide you with guidance based on knowledge and education that we hopefully have. And then you tell us your needs and we go find resources. We might have them readily available. We might have to do a little bit of research to act in the best interest of the association. So we execute functions, assist the general homeowners, and provide guidance to the board and to homeowners. We don't have, a dog in the fight, as they say. We personally don't care if your community allows pets or doesn't allow pets. Our personal feeling on it is irrelevant. You have governing documents that specify one way or the other. It's very black or white to me. It either says this or it says this. Now, if it's gray and we don't understand or it's unclear, our providing guidance is to help you draft a resolution to clarify a confusing part of the governing documents. Thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of that whole process. So board member tips, skills, recruiting, stay informed, be involved, attend all your meetings, make sure to vote on decisions. There's the QR to the Financials 101 that we did last month. And there's another session we did on running effective meetings. And you can find those both, scan the QRs really quick, or find them in our library of events. Should everyone be a board member? Should someone be a decision maker just because they volunteered or because no one else volunteered and they're the only other person left in the room? Right? Obviously, I think everyone can be on a board if they're doing it for the right reasons. And what you need to be is responsive and approachable. Got to be good mediators because homeowners will have funny issues that just because you're the association, you're going to get drug into. Good communication skills and just a passion for serving your community, your association, and your greater community. All these things. If you're one of our several dozen watching today, you have these things, you get it. It's sometimes it's lonely. And so we want to recruit. Yes, we appreciate you, Mr. or Mrs. President, that have been on a board for 12, 15, 20 years. We got a call a couple weeks ago from a community that the board president has been the board president for 24 years, and he's retiring and doesn't want to do it anymore. Well, he provided hundreds of thousands of free volunteer time to the association over the years. And everyone wanted to know, okay, well, who's going to step in and do it? No one wants to do what he did the way he did it, the number of hours that he did it. So they're going to hire management to help, right? But still there's a gaping hole, like he's got these shoes and people just don't want to serve like they used to. Depends on the type of community and where and what the community includes, but you kind of need to identify good potential future board members, put them involved in a project, an ad hoc committee or task, and get them thinking. You know people that serve the community, take good care of their yard, are involved and who care. So keep your eye out on that. We do that as management, and we encourage people to run. And it's not just people who like us as management. I would much rather have a passionate person for their community. We don't have to agree because we can be respectful and we can disagree, but someone who really cares about their community. And then we can train them on the nuances of being on a board and following the state laws and the governing documents. Whoa. Well, thank you very much for your 45 minutes today. And if there are any questions, one of our moderators can see that and tell us and unmute you so you can ask the question. Or if you're shy or don't have a microphone, you can put it in the chat and we can answer that. Jessica or Rachel, who are probably napping after my thrilling 45-minute presentation, do we have any questions?
Yes, I'm always napping on the job. That's how I do things here. But no, we don't have any questions in the Q&A right now. If anybody wants to raise their hand, otherwise we'll send follow-up emails. And if you have questions, we can definitely get back to you through those.
Thank you. Thank you for no questions. So I can go to my nap, which is what I do. So here's QR code. We get fed off your positive 5-star reviews. So go to that link and then it takes you to all the other links. If you're interested, we sure greatly appreciate that each time. Thank you for attending. We will see you on, I think it's a Wednesday, August the 21st at noon in the mountain, 1 o'clock in Arkansas, Minnesota, everywhere in between, and 2 p.m. in the east. Thank you for attending today. Continue to have a safe summer. Try to find some cool air, and we appreciate you. Have a good day.